Hey, and welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers Show on your SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Bradshaw DeBen, a.k.a. Will Massasak, also known as Accidental Zen on Twitter. And we're here to talk Steelers football with two great cohorts, as always. Starting us off from somewhere in Indiana will be the man you may know as Smith is Smoking. His name is Jeremy Coleman. He's with us. How are you, sir?
Doing great, guys. How are you?
Not too bad. And also with us, of course, our favorite curmudgeon back for the 25th season, the 25th of the rerun of season one. His name is FC. We call him Dom, or his name is Dom. We call him FC. He's somewhere hidden from view, outside the purview of. He's hiding from the NSA right now. Dom, he's with us. How are you?
Doing very well. How are you guys?
Surviving the pandemic and made it to football season somehow.
That's all that matters, sir.
No, I'm guessing that neither of you thought football season was a lock to get started. So I don't know. I'll throw it to you, Jeremy. How was your take on the long wait for football and the Steelers offseason?
Well, I was very anxious, since March Madness got shut down, NBA got pushed back. Just seemed like it was waiting to happen to football. Everyone stayed optimistic about football. And for the most part, outside the Big Ten and Pac-12, seems like everything's starting normal for football. So I'm okay with it. It kills me that the Big Ten's not going to be playing here. Hopefully they play at some point, but we'll see. Being in the Midwest, Ohio State isn't playing, Michigan isn't playing. Iowa, Nebraska, all these big-time schools that want to play football aren't playing football right now. Every team in Ohio except Ohio State is playing football. They love it there. So.
Yeah, I guess that's to be expected. That just what a weird thing that the top football team in the state basically isn't playing and everybody else is.
Right.
FC, how are things down there in South Carolina? Have people adopted to the fact that there is, in fact, a pandemic, or is it like business as usual?
I hate to say this, it's been business as usual for a while down here. It's just, I spend 3 maybe months of the year in Hawaii where it's just locked down, similar to that. I was in New York for about 2 weeks, so I understand what's going on there as well. And it's like living in two different worlds. Everything's wide open, bars, restaurants. Unfortunately, you see people not wearing masks. I live actually in one of the hotspot counties that's left in the country. And but on the football front, oh boy, are they excited. The Clemson flags are flying, the Georgia flags, South Carolina flags, you hear Roll Tide all over the place, even in South Carolina. They're football crazy here now.
Yeah, well, at this point, we'll take anything. I watched more golf this year than I have probably in my entire 50-some years of existence because it was something that was on and some people were competing, So, I never thought I'd be following along with the FedEx Cup, but there you have it. Specifically about the Steelers offseason, it's been a while since we talked. Jeremy, I'll start with you. Last time we talked was before the draft. Now we've seen not just who the Steelers picked, but also what their whole offseason looked like. I may have been the only one that follows the Steelers that sort of expected most of what they did with this offseason. So very few surprises for me, but it feels like it's you can see the plan falling into place maybe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Cam Hayward got that late week extension here before the start of the season. The sides came together, locked up, him for another 4 years. I think that's big for the defense moving forward. My big thing is I think there's a lot of good depth all around the roster at the moment. So they've got their roster in place, and now they're just hoping that we're going to have a full season,
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a little scary to me to think about what happens next year. I mean, you just can't think too much about what happens next year, right? Because there's so many players that are not under contract for next year who are sort of key contributors right now. So that's the part of it that I guess there's nothing you can really do. Just got to hope that they do have a season this year and get the most out of it. But FC, are you thinking that this is a one and done kind of load for this year? Like, in other words, is there maybe no way they can compete next year with what they're going to have to rebuild?
I don't believe that. When you have a 38, 39-year-old quarterback, you're season to season. I mean, that's not generally the approach that we like to take here in Pittsburgh. But if Ben is what we hope that he's going to be, you can get stuff done. But if Ben is shot or if he retires after the year, then I think the Steelers probably it's time to go with a rebuild/reload. I'm sure they'll try to keep some players. Most of the players. I mean, some of the guys that I'm sure that they're going to try to get something done with TJ Watt. I'm sure they probably will try to get, an extension done with Minka Fitzpatrick. I'm sure they'll try to get an extension done, with Tuitt, where you could redo that deal and make it a lot more friendly. There's a lot of things the Steelers, can do going into next season. But I do agree with the eagle eye approach to just this season, just because of, the COVID, just because of what's going on. So who knows if there is going to be a next season.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, who knows if there's going to be a week 5. I guess Memphis, the football team that played one of the first games, college games, and they traveled, I think, for that game. Did they? Oh, no, was that at home? That was at home. But at any rate, I guess they had 20 or 25 people with the team, on the team and with the team that tested positive after that game. So now they're on lockdown for 10 days or something. So, it just kind of makes me – I guess football, what I just recently read, CDC had tiers of risky behavior, risky activities, and football was in the top tier with flying on an airplane, private gatherings of more than 25 people inside, like the worst kinds of stuff, eating in a restaurant, so on and so forth. So apparently, it's going to be tough. So I guess we ought to enjoy whatever version of it we get because, it's going to be a real challenge. But that's the way it is sometimes.
Jake Glazer was on 25, 30 minutes before this podcast started, and they're probably not going to get it in this week, but next week they may have all players wearing full shields. And I actually think that would be a smart maneuver. Just a full face shield, plexiglass face shield, similar to what the quarterbacks wear. Tinted, untinted, just as a more of a precaution, more of a prophylactic, And I actually think that'll be a great idea. Regardless of what anyone says, the shield technology is to a point where it doesn't steam up. You can't even tell it's on. It's perfectly clear. They even have a little bit of a tint for, sunny for receivers, so there's no glare. I think that would be a minimal good start to, for player safety.
Yeah, I think they should all have the Andy Reid shield like he had last night. It's going to be doing some work in the shop, Yeah. That's about what you're talking about, yeah? A little bit more sporty version.
Sure. Absolutely.
Why not, right? So Jeremy, let's talk for a second about the Steelers. They didn't really have a camp. What they showed us from camp was barely anything.
Right.
What we heard from camp was very controlled. But, the main thing, I guess, easily to be excited about it, Ben can apparently throw a football. So let's start with that. You think we've averted disaster? Do you notice anything in this that gives you pause, or do you feel like he's a full go?
From what I've read, from what I've watched, it looks like the old Ben Roethlisberger out there. He's taking some days off in camp for arm maintenance, but that's always been the recipe with him. That Veterans Day off on Wednesday. Even during practice during the season, it's been, a day off during the week. So he definitely threw more this summer than he has in a long time. So I'm hoping we have the same Big Ben Roethlisberger. I think he's going to come out a little rusty. He even said the other day he's, anxious to get back out on the field, against real NFL competition, like you said. Training camp has not, been a normal training camp, even for the Steelers, who like to be more physical in camp. They have not had their normal physical camp that Mike Tomlin likes to run compared to a lot of the other teams in the league. So looking forward and hoping we're going to see Ben sling the ball all over the place on Monday night.
Yeah, I hope so. Dom, your sense about Ben, first of all, I mean, it seems like you look at those, you've seen the documentaries, right? The little documentaries of him.
I watched thing I could find on Ben Roethlisberger this summer, and it's with the COVID, I probably know more about the Steelers and as much about the Steelers and the college draft coming up as one man can humanly devour. That's what I've spent my time doing.
Yeah, I gotcha. So, I mean, I got a pretty good tip. I had 2 conversations last fall, like in October, just a few weeks after the injury, with people that were. One of them was a person that rehabs this injury for sports specifically, who had like a shortstop, I think top college shortstop that had similar surgery, and also with another doctor who was familiar with the surgery. And they both said the same thing, which was that the prognosis, if the surgery is successful, is that the thrower feels like nothing ever happened, like their arm is like it always was. And they noticed no real difference with it. Now, nobody knows how long that lasts. But in terms of after the surgery and immediately, playing sports after that, it feels like it's, pretty good chances that that person will recover and be able to throw. Now, an NFL quarterback who's nearly 40 years old, had a pretty serious version of that surgery, but it seemed like the prognosis was good. So I wasn't really expecting. I mean, I was, like everybody else, I was totally holding my breath until you see, like every time he threw it on the screen, I was like, oh, maybe that's the one. So I feel like the rest of his career that we're all going to be like that. We'll all be, hanging on every throw, which is good. We should be appreciative of every throw the guy makes. But I'm sure it will slide before too long. We'll be criticizing whatever he does. But so FC, in terms of the Steelers off season and their preparedness, I don't know. I watched last night. I felt like neither one of those teams seemed really prepared for the physicality of line play. Like the running and catching, the 7-on-7 part of the game, they were pretty sharp. But it didn't – the quarterbacks didn't necessarily seem that sharp on deep throws. But it was the line play that just looked slow and a little awkward to me. Running backs didn't really look like they had that, cut burst. And I felt like maybe the Steelers prepare a little better for that in camp because of the way they prepare.
I don't know if they could have. You can't simulate live NFL contact without having live NFL contact. I mean,
sure.
I understand what you're saying. Everything looked a little bit off, where they looked like they might be only going 70% because it's the first time they've gotten lathered up in 8 months, 9 months. The teams are physical. I thought it was a good product on the field. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm sure you're not either. But it just didn't seem to the normal level of a kickoff of an NFL season. Now, what that might be is our expectations, of, a Houston Texans explosive team and an explosive Kansas City Chiefs.
Sure.
Is Patrick Mahomes getting to the point where no matter how great he is, can he ever be really as great as he was? What I'm trying to say is we have unrealistic expectations for what Patrick Mahomes, ascent is going to be. He got the $500 million contract, and, he is blessed with a golden arm. Huge arm, huge accuracy, athletic, but jump throws, he just does everything perfect. He's like a man creation.
Yeah.
So I think that our expectations may I'll feel better feel next week after we see the rest of the game. I'm thinking that Houston may play some ugly football this year because I don't like the direction of the team. And I think that Kansas City was, just doing they were taking what was there. I think that Mahomes attempted 2 throws that were 30 yards, yesterday. The controlled mid-range passing game was there, and they were able to run the football. And the one thing that I will say that I took from yesterday's game is Kalichi Osemele to Kansas City seems to be a really nice move. They're going to be hell on field at offense.
No, big pickup. And if they let him get away with let's call it the professional NFL lineman holding.
Sure.
Like if they let him get away with that, he's too physically dominant to be stopped. I mean, he could have done that all day to those guys. We'll see if he gets that kind of calls against Aaron Donald and the like. Speaking of Patrick Mahomes, just for 1 second, Jeremy, to me, that game last night, I was like, oh, this is the 2007 Ben Roethlisberger version of Patrick Mahomes. It's, it's okay to take what the defense gives you underneath, and you can actually get a lot of mileage from that. And then when you get in the red zone, you have all these targets, and you can make touchdowns happen. I mean, that was Ben's 2007 season, which was his 3rd season as a starter. So it kind of feels like that's the natural progression, which is scary because if that guy with all his magical ability has the patience game to go along with it, seemed like they're in pretty good shape. Maybe you saw something similar last night since we started on last night's game.
Yeah, Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy had a great game plan. The first thing they said is we're going to use Travis Kelce and use these guys in the middle. And then they basically said we're going to run Tyreek Hill around all game and have him be the big distraction piece because you saw Demarcus Robinson get a lot of one-on-one opportunities. Mecole Hardman, he's been a Steeler Fury draft favorite. He didn't have a big night, but he was out there, having a guy like Tyreek Hill, they were having to play a safety over top of him all game long. So it gave single coverage to every other receiver out there. So, that's why Sammy Watkins had such a big game. They were using rub and pick routes to get him open. I think he had 2 touchdown grabs for right around 80 yards total. He looked like a completely different player, than the guy who was playing last year. So, that offense is as scary as usual. And then, I was a big fan of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He looked great last night. I was telling some friends, if the Chiefs can open up some holes like that all year with the addition of Kelechi Osemele, and in general, he's going to be a Pro Bowler. It's not even going to be close. He could lead the AFC in rushing. And that's saying something when Derrick Henry never comes off the field in Tennessee. So,
their leading rusher last year, I think it's 600 yards rushing or something. So basically, or 469, maybe even less. So basically, he had almost a third of what their leading rusher had in the entire season last year. He had in one game. So FC, let's talk a little bit about this week's matchup with the New Jersey Giants, the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football. I watched the blue and white game, which they have an actual scrimmage. It's kind of like if the Friday night lights in Latrobe were an actual game where they kept score. If that's kind of what they do. So they give points to the defense for a 3-and-out and interceptions and so on. So they basically play offense against defense in the blue and white. And my major takeaway from that was New York's offensive line is in serious trouble in this game. They seem to have a difficult time doing anything. They couldn't block guys in the short yardage run game. They gave up 3 sacks in the first 10 plays. I see that as being where this matchup, if you're going to analyze it, begins and ends. Let's talk for a second about the trenches. Steelers front 7 against the New York Giants offensive front.
See, that blue and white game, I think that you seem the correct thing because my concern going into this game is Steeler fans, the national media, and everybody involved don't realize that the Giants are putting together a pretty nice front 7. Dexter Lawrence, Lorenzo Carter, Dalvin Tomlinson. They have a decent defensive line. We might be running out. Is the caster going to play? I'm leaning towards no.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much a sure thing today.
What's that?
They said out now, I think, today.
Yeah. So you're going to have Wisniewski and in for DeCastro. You got Fowler playing left guard, which I have a pretty good feeling about. Zach Banner, right tackle, concerns. The Giants actually have a fast large defensive front seven that the Steelers are going to be very much tested. Now, the Giants' defensive backs outside of Bradbury, not very good. Their offensive line, not very good. Daniel Jones, not a very big fan. Saquon Barkley is explosive. He's dynamic. He's a star. But, you know, Evan Ingram's really not known for his blocking. Great receiver. I'm not sure how they're going to block the Steelers up front seven. The Steelers' offensive line, if they can handle the Giants' front four, if they have a good game, the Steelers should beat the Giants easily by 2 to 3 touchdowns. I just see this game in New York, the weirdness. I really think this is going to be a dogfight for the Steelers, and I think the Giants' defensive line is a lot better than people are giving it credit for. I think Dexter Lawrence is a future star in the NFL.
Sure. I mean, the fact that they're missing DeCastro and the Giants have Dexter Lawrence. I mean, this is a follow-up for you, Dom. It feels like the Steelers are going to want to prove that they can establish the run as both a way of like jumping off point for their whole offense, and also because they didn't have a preseason to really work on their run game and so on. And it feels like that's the one thing the Giants can do, especially with DeCastro out and the defensive line of the Giants. I mean, do you think they're willing to sacrifice keeping the Giants in the game to work on something that they might have worked on in preseason? Because the opportunities to work on that are limited, so maybe they have to take advantage of it in a real game.
I think that the Giants are a mystery to the Steelers because we don't know what Joe Judge is going to do. We don't know. You know, you can look at the Miami Dolphins defense from last year. You can take a look at the New England Patriots defense from the last 10 years, and that's what the Giants defensive coordinator, that's his background. Joe Judge being a special teams coach, you can take a guess at what Jason Garrett's offense is going to look like. The Steelers have the same thing going on. The Steelers very slightly this offseason added 2 offensive weapons. They added a new fullback in Derek Watt, and they added a tight end in Eric Ebron to go along with Vance McDonald. Are the Steelers' base offense, is it 2 tight ends or is it 2 backs? You know, I don't know. The New York Giants don't know.
The answer is yes. It's everything, you know. Could be
right. So personnel groupings is going to dictate a lot. I think Derek Watt's a hell of a run blocker. People feel that we've signed him mostly for special teams, but he's a get after it run blocker. If you look at some of San Diego's film last year, the lot of success that Eckler and Melvin Gordon whenever he returned, especially Melvin Gordon the year before, came on basic Steelers 1990 power run. Tim Lester in front of the bus, John Whitman and Brian Milne in front of Eric Pegram. I mean, it's basic, simple, easy. It's the shotgun under your bed. It's reliable. The power end game, with 2 backs with a blocking fullback. Who's the Steelers starting tight end? I'm leaning towards Eric Ebron. He's really not known for his run blocking. Unfortunately, Vance McDonald is not much better of a run blocker. So, blocking the edge is going to be interesting. James Conner is really not known for his explosive ability. I have a feeling that McFarland is going to be more part of the team than people realize. It's going to be very interesting. I mean, I think that you started this off 100% correct, where it's going to be up to Zach Banner, to Castro, whenever he's healthy. Thielen, Pouncey. If the Steelers' offensive line, they have to be better than they were last year. I understand that we had Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, and teams are playing bump block against us. We still got to block it up better. If the Steelers block it up better, there is no reason with the weapons this team has that they can't be super explosive.
Yeah, it feels that way. So, Jeremy, the thought of the Steelers always being a bell cow, Mike Tomlin, I'm going to run this guy's wheels off. With James Conner, that's had some mixed results. When he's healthy, it works pretty well to spell him the way that they did. FC mentioned maybe Anthony McFarland getting more involved. I'm not sure about that one, but I do feel that the run game could be a bit more diversified. What's your take on how the Steelers will approach the running game? A lot of fullback, a lot of different formations, a lot of different running backs. What do you think they'll do?
Well, I definitely think they're going to lean on Connor. This has been a team that has always tried to use a one-back approach. until to quote Mike Tomlin, until we run his wheels off. I do think with the addition of Derek Watt, I do think that's going to definitely help in the run game. I also think the addition of Matt Canada kind of introducing some new formations. Big Ben kind of said something to it the other day because a reporter said something about, different formations. So he alluded to there are some new wrinkles in the offenses with motions and stuff. I definitely feel like that's going to be a part of it. I also think Benny Snell, who showed up at like 210 pounds, he lost a solid 25 pounds, from his playing weight last year. Supposedly he and Deontay Johnson really dedicated themselves in the offseason and really showed up in fantastic shape, just kind of wanting to take that second-year leap as pros. So I think Snell is going to see more time than, probably what he did last year just because he showed up and had such a great camp. I am a big fan of Anthony McFarland. I love how he can get to 0 to 60. I definitely think he'll probably be, a candidate to return kicks and maybe be a guy who can spell every now and then. But let's also not forget Jalen Samuels. I felt like he had some good games last year. He's that Swiss Army knife. I definitely think he's going to play a lot more in the slot this year. When reporters talked to him, he said that he took a lot of snaps in the slot here in training camp. And I think that's another reason why the Steelers were comfortable only going with 5 wide receivers. I think they see him as a guy who can be their backup slot receiver if they need him out there. So with the addition in Canada, I think we're going to see mostly the same thing that we've been used to seeing the last few years. Just might see a few new wrinkles here and there.
Yeah, and I actually really like the idea that basically all these running backs played for Matt Canada somewhere. Canada was the guy at NC State who essentially made Jalen Samuels the centerpiece of his offense, but used him in a bunch of different ways that none of which were really a traditional way. And that thing about him playing in the slot FC feels like I would have memories of him at NC State getting a lot of run plays against the grain, where they would kind of fake like a power run to one direction and give it to Jalen Samuels going the other way from the slot or from flanker. It's sort of a college thing you see a lot, but don't see a lot in the NFL. You think we might see some kind of weird misdirection stuff now that Matt Canada is here? You buy the Matt Canada influence?
Oh, I definitely think that there's going to be a lot of window dressing. I think that Jeremy actually was spot on, where it's going to be a lot of the same principles with a lot of different window dressing. The more you make a defense think, the slower they play. And that's how you win offensive football in the NFL, is you have to slow the defense down. If the defense has to, adjust to a motion, if they have to count the number of people in the box, if they have to find the strong side of the formation, if you break tendencies, that's how you slow a defense down. It's every bit as important as the snap count or execution. You have to make a defense think. You have to confuse them at some point. And that's what Matt Canada is. It's the way he was known for at NC State. It's the way he was known for at Pitt. He actually did pretty well at Maryland. I mean, a lot of people want to blast on him for his performance at Maryland, but wow, you want to talk about a team that was just decimated by injuries, outside influence, and just bad luck. I actually think he's a hell of a football coach, and I think he's a very good addition to the staff. And I think the best thing that we have going for us is that Fitch doesn't have the ego where he wants input from his assistants, from the other assistants. He wants that success. He doesn't have to be thought of as the smartest or loudest guy in the room.
No, they got some good minds in the room, and a quarterback who's a pretty good football mind as well at this point. So that does feel like a real positive. Speaking of running games, let's flip it to the other side. Jeremy, let's talk about the Giants. Obviously, all roads lead to Saquon Barkley for the New York Giants. It feels like although they have some of these tight end seam plays and they like to play vertical passing game, which may or may not materialize with the Steelers pass rush, feels like Saquon Barkley, they're just going to try to get him the ball a lot. And the one concern I guess I might have about Steelers defense is maybe it's the lingering bad taste from the last game against Baltimore last year. Is stopping the run, especially losing their nose tackle, who was not necessarily a big run stuffer, but was a penetrating, run stuffer. How do you think the Steelers will fare if the Giants just look to power run against them? Do you think that's a way that the Giants can succeed and maybe keep the pass rush to a minimum?
Well, I definitely think they're going to try, as hard as they can to make that a big part of the game, because what the Steelers thrive on defense is when they can shut off the running game, then they can really start teeing off, and that's not a game the Giants want to play. With a rookie left tackle, some rookies in the depth chart, and just not a great overall offensive line yourself. Like you said, they gave up like 3 sacks in the first 10 plays of their blue and white game. I mean, that's not, Daniel Jones dropping back 50 times, that's not a game they're going to win. They have to commit to the run. I mean, Saquon Barkley is a generational type talent. He's a guy that if he gets the hole, he could outrun the whole defense. You see it time in, time out. Him with, his footwork is phenomenal for, a running back of his youth. He's just such a great player at this stage already. He's just a weapon in all facets of the game. He's definitely the guy they need to go to. They do have a lot of good complementary pieces, though. I was a big fan of Darius Slayton last year. He was able to stretch the defense. Sterling Shepard, he's been nicked up here and there, but, I mean, he's been very reliable for them coming up in the slot and even playing a little bit outside. I can't remember the name of the other guy. Golden Tate is still there. He can still do some special things when he gets the chance. He's not the player he was, but he can still be a good player for them. And then I think I've read a bunch that Evan Ingram is going to be a big part of this offense if he can just stay healthy. I was reading something earlier this year that they think he could get like 1,000 yards, which would be, that'd be unheard of, in New York. They haven't had a feature tight end in a long time, to be honest. Honestly, the last guy who I can remember who even got even close was Kevin Boss, and that was like 5-6 years ago, and he wasn't even a receiving tight end.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a fun game to watch, though. Daniel Jones does have a little bit of moxie to him, so it's all about whether they can give him time and, if they can get open against a very stingy defense.
Yeah, I think they have offensive line problems when they have everybody, and they have a rookie, Andrew Thomas. Let's talk about that for a second, FC. Andrew Thomas, I liked him as a draft pick, as a prospect. I can't recall how you felt about him. Were you sort of high on him, or did you felt that he was maybe a little overdrafted, or where do you come down on the Andrew Thomas train?
I thought he was overdrafted, number one. I think he is going to be an absolutely phenomenal right tackle in the NFL. He has right tackle traits. He has right tackle ability. He has right tackle feet. He has right tackle technique. I do not think he is going to be a very good left tackle. I think he is meant to play right tackle or left guard. That is not an attack on the young man. He's incredibly heavy-handed. He's incredibly powerful. He plays the game right. He's just not built to play left tackle in the modern NFL. He is very, very top-heavy. He gets his head over his pads. His balance is poor. And he has been taught the game by some of the best people going back to his youth. He was involved in a very high-level Pop Warner football team, then went on to IMG Academy, which is the best high school football program in the country. From there, he went on to the University of Georgia, where he was coached by 2 future NFL offensive line coaches. And he was picked as early as he was, so he has the pedigree. He's a fantastic right tackle. Yeah. I don't think he can play left tackle. I think he's going to be a little bit too his balance isn't going to be good enough. He's going to have real issues with speed and quickness and players that can get him moving one way and counter back the other way. Not strength of Bud Dupree's pass rushing game in the past. He showed quite a bit of improvement last season, so I think Bud Dupree could give him a lot of issues.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good matchup to have your first time out of the gate, And it's like you're not going to get a lot of help when T.J. Watt's on the other side of the line either.
And Cam Hayward into it.
Yeah,
Right.
and with what the Steelers bring in the front, you better be able to hold your own out there on an island if you're the left tackle. So, yeah, that feels like a little bit of a dangerous thing. Jeremy, how'd you feel about Lorenzo Carter flipping it to the other side for the Giants? Because he's the guy that now is emerging for them that they think is going to be a breakout pass rusher this year. How do you feel about his prospects for being able to do that?
Well, I liked him coming out of Georgia. He was definitely on my short list, for the guys, for the Steelers to kind of look at as for a backup type of guy. Or at the time, I was thinking maybe a guy who could replace Dupree because he hadn't really come into his own yet. But, I mean, he's well built. He's got some strength to his game. He's got some slipperiness to his game. I think Alejandro Villanueva is going to have his hands full a little bit, just because I think there is going to be some natural rust out there. All it takes is one screw up and, there's a free blitzer through. So I think he's a good player. He did a decent job in college defending the run. I haven't really seen him defend the run a whole lot in the NFL. I think that could be an area where you might be able to get an advantage with, but even then, Villanueva is not a fantastic run blocker. He's more of a positional wall-off type of blocker. So I think that'll be a fun matchup to watch. Hopefully Villanueva gets the best, so Big Ben can stay upright. But
so, FC, in terms of the Steelers tackles, I guess we'll make this the last question on the preview. You said, you're not sure what to make of the Banner thing. I kind of thought Banner, in the opportunity he's been given, meaning preseason 2 years ago, playing right tackle in the preseason last year, playing both left tackle and right tackle in the preseason. He looked pretty good at both those spots. And then last year, being the third tight end, you get a little bit of opportunity to do this and that. So I kind of predicted he would win this job, but I'm, not at all sure what to make of, what he'll be as a starter full time. Also, Alejandro Villanueva had sort of an up and down year last year. What do you make of this situation with the Steelers tackles, not only in this game, but kind of looking forward?
I remember Zach Banner's dad real well playing in the NFL. So I have unbelievable, unrealistic expectations. I want Zach Banner to morph into Lincoln Kennedy, and it's not going to happen. I mean, it's not going to happen. Zach Banner is a unique player. He is massive. He is long. He is a phenomenal teammate. The one thing that I really look for in offensive linemen, especially at the NFL level, is you got to have a special little bit of kind of nuts in you. A lot of people scoff and say, "Oh, that piece of shit, Richie Incognito. I'd sign him tomorrow if he was available." He's like Felice Umsele. You have to have that special kind of nasty. And I'm not sure Zach Banner has it. He may have it. He was a good player at USC. I think the Colts made a mistake by cutting him. I think that he was a better player than Ryan Haig. I think that the Colts were locked into Anthony Costanzo at the time at left tackle, and I think they were sticking with him no matter what. I hope that Zach Banner comes out and proves to be the player that you believe he can be. And that's me being 100% sincere. I don't know. And you won't hear that a lot from me. I'll generally jump there, give you a strong opinion, and try to bullshit my way out of it whenever I'm wrong. But in this case, I really don't know. With Villanueva, it's really hard to hammer the Steelers' offensive line last year just because of who we had under center. Mason Rudolph, I hate to say it, I thought it was a major disappointment. I thought that Hodges, he is what you expect him to be, coming from where he came from. I think with Ben, in the huddle, I think the offensive line automatically gets a little bit better. Villanueva supposedly reshaped his body a little bit this offseason where he dropped about 18 to 20 pounds. If that's true, I think that's one of the best things that he could do. I don't think that Villanueva needed to get bigger. I think as you get older, I think that you lose flexibility, you lose agility, and you lose reaction time. And the best way to try to fight those things as an offensive lineman is to get lighter and to get quicker and to get more agile. And generally that's what you see happen with offensive linemen as they get older. It's the ever shrinking, generally offensive linemen don't get bigger. Perfect example would be Jason Peters, who just re-signed to play left tackle with the Eagles. I think he lost 31 pounds, just because he felt that he was too darn heavy.
Wow.
And I think that Villanueva found out last season that he got a little bit too big. And I think he's going to have, a better season. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a Pro Bowl level player. I don't think the Steelers really expect him to be. If he is one, fantastic. But I think he'll be very serviceable, and I think that he'll probably be one of the least issues that we have on the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of thinking this is Al's last year. It's tough to say that because, I think he probably means a lot to the Steelers players and organization. But
how about this? In fact, I bet you Villanueva signs a 2-year deal. They'll be very team friendly. Very team friendly.
Yeah.
I'm willing to make just because of the character of the man.
Right. Well, that part of it, like I said, but, the same was true with Foster and the solution that presented itself as Foster retired. I mean, I guess, if Villanueva doesn't sort of have a bounce back year and a much better year than last year, maybe that would be the outcome. I say this only because there's only so much money to go around. And, they have a lot of younger guys that they're invested in that have promise.
What do you think of Matt Fowler last year at left guard? I think that was a big play in Ramon Foster. I think that Matt Fowler is going to be a future Pro Bowl left guard.
No, I think he might be an all-star.
Whenever he play, that he should be playing inside, and he's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, that's exactly. The only trouble he had last year was with, the real tough edge rushers, which is the kind of thing where, he couldn't throw his weight around. But he looked serviceable and maybe even better than that against Aaron Donald, which is something you don't say every year.
Yeah. Looked great last year, Aaron Donald.
So that's why I say I think you got to re-sign Fowler. And if Zach Banner has a good season as your right tackle, he needs a deal. And I just don't know where, if they're going to be able to manage it all somehow.
Actually, Cooper might slide in the right guard. Then, you got 4 of your 5 offensive linemen now taken care of.
Yeah. You got younger guys, too. Like DeCastro is set for, a little bit longer. So I don't know. It's going to be a really interesting season. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Draft. 13 draftable prospects at center in this year's draft.
There you go. Would you be shocked to see Kevin Dotson playing some center?
I think Kevin Dotson's going to maybe start by the end of the year. I'm a humongous fan. See, I like a lot of what the Steelers did this offseason. I didn't want to sound negative whenever I bitched about the signing of, Watt and of Eric Ebron, saying that I don't want to say that we didn't have direction. I mean, as funny as this sounds, don't be surprised if Lorenzo Highsmith's actually a decent player.
Yeah.
Charlotte. Yeah, I mean,
sure.
Let me put it this way. He may tell you a story, but somehow he managed to get to the passer a lot against real quality teams, too.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, Charlotte, they're playing a horrible. If you look at the schedule they played, and you look at the success that he had against draftable NFL prospects, against players that played at Clemson, against people that played at North Carolina State.
Sure.
He had success. He I don't like the history of Kevin Colbert with pass rushers, but how about this? We made it almost completely through this podcast without talking about Claypool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could have started and ended with that, right? He's been sort of the, sensation.
How about this? If I told you Chase Claypool has 1 touchdown this year, you wouldn't be shocked. If I told you Chase Claypool has 14 touchdowns this year, you wouldn't be shocked.
No. I mean, it's the problem that anybody predicting offensive numbers is I don't know how they're going to get them all on the field. Like everybody's got high hopes for all these people, but it's just not enough room, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Who led NFL rookies last year in receptions?
Yeah, I was going to say the other guy we haven't mentioned at all.
Yeah.
So
Jeremy.
An embarrassment of riches. Really.
Johnson. They talk about all these great rookie wide receivers last year, and they named off 10, and they didn't name off Deontay Johnson. I'm like, he led NFL rookies in receptions.
With the guys, the two worst quarterbacks in the league throwing the ball for him, too. So,
right.
So just one last word on Alonzo Highsmith. or Alonzo Highsmith? Alex Highsmith.
Alonzo Highsmith played at Miami in the early 80s.
Yeah. I saw Highsmith play a game. I was looking at a different player, and I saw him, I think, during his sophomore season, and I wrote his name down because I was like, this guy seems like an edge rusher I want to get to know a little bit more. And literally I've followed him for 3 seasons, and I'm not at all surprised that he ended up being a draft pick that people are excited about. My only downer on him is just that he tested like a normal athlete and not like an edge rusher, which there's just so few guys who have taken that athletic profile and turned it into being a holy terror pass rusher in the NFL. There have been a lot of good players that weren't great athletes that just worked, were really hard workers and, had great technique and, in the right situation, especially opposite another guy like a Robin as opposed to a Batman. And I can, definitely see him being very successful at that. As much as I like him, and I was high on him before the draft, it worries me that he doesn't have, if you're going to let Dupree walk, if that's a given, I don't know he has Dupree's upside. So we have to be okay with that because he's going to be solid. I think he'll be right out of the, high floor, low ceiling guy, but not in the bad.
Clark Hagan is a comp.
Sure. Yeah. No, if he ends up being Clark Hagan, it's a great pick. I mean, think about where he's picked.
Well, no Super Bowl with Clark Hagan's. So
yeah. Oh no. People think that comparing someone to Clark Hagan's is a negative.
Right.
All right, gents. Well, it's time for our illustrious pick segment, brought to us by
Mike Pereira, Chico's Bail Bonds, and Keem Talib retired. So I guess the affiliation with the pick segment is going to have to finally
Did his mom retire? Because if his mom didn't retire, it's okay. She can still be a sponsor.
I think that she still has her firearm, so, it's instead of Annie, go get your gun, it's like Miss Talib, go get your gun.
All right. I think I'd like to add a new sponsor, which is the review to determine what's a catch. Like we had a 5-minute review last night, which we thought we were done with that last year. Everything was kind of quick and,
right.
forma with the catches. And then they went right back to like 2 years ago where it was Jesse, should have caught it. All this business. Anyway, that's our pick segment. Also brought to us by Sports and Shit, where you can get some good quality swag. There's some new COVID normalcy, like emergency, but normalcy products for those of you with a really bad sense of humor. And some other good stuff. Like Steeler Fury dog bed still. Come on, man. It's a plush dog bed with Steeler Fury. You could do worse. Anyway, our picks. That's the first picks of the year. We missed out on the Kansas City Houston situation last night. But let's talk for a second about some other games. The one I thought was interesting was the Green Bay, Minnesota. Green Bay is at Minnesota, and they're getting 2.5 points against the Vikings. Vikings, if I have it right, Daniel Hunter he's out either with an injury or COVID.
Yeah, he got put on IR. He'll be out for at least the first 3 weeks with a weird neck injury. They didn't really disclose what it was.
Did it actually say weird neck injury on the injury?
Sorry, no, that was mine.
That would be pretty good.
Put on the IR with they're fucking with my money.
You're fucking with my money, yeah. Undoubtedly. So I'll start with you, Jeremy. What do you think of this Green Bay, Minnesota situation?
I think it'll be a pretty close game throughout. I do agree with giving kind of Green Bay the points here. I do think they're going to go in and find a way to win that game. Losing Daniel Hunter is a big deal. Yannick Ngakoue just got there. He has not had a lot of time to get in there. So I don't know how much of a pass rush the Vikings are really going to have. So I think that's going to be a problem if you let Aaron Rodgers sit back there and throw. But I also think one important thing to remember is Green Bay became a much better running team last year. That they are committed to running the ball there now, much to Aaron Rodgers' chagrin, how he can't get a first-round wide receiver to save his life. Got another backup quarterback for him. Congrats, guys. But I think it'll be a back-and-forth game. I think the Vikings have some pieces. I think Justin Jefferson, I don't think he's going to have a big impact here week one. Everything I've read said he's the pure number 3 guy behind Adam Thielen and Olabisi Johnson. So I think both offenses are going to struggle a little bit to get going. I think there's going to be some sloppy football, kind of like we saw a little bit last night. I think that's going to be universal across the league since there were no preseason games and even less contact practices than a normal training camp would be. So I think it's all going to be about who's going to make the less big mistakes.
Well, what was the pick? That's the part I didn't catch. Who do we like? Minnesota minus 2.5 or Green Bay plus 2.5?
No, I'm taking Green Bay plus 2.5.
All right. I just want to pin you down. FC.
I'm going to make my pick in 5 seconds, and I'm going to give a little rant. My pick will be I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers and the points. My low is going to be, holy hell, does the sports media suck. They're terrible. I'm going to explain to you why. They're hammering Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is done. Aaron Rodgers is garbage. Aaron Rodgers had a 98 fucking quarterback rating last year. They were one of the top 5 rushing teams in the NFL, and their defense finally turned around and wasn't pure dog shit. That's what happened to Aaron Rodgers. That's why his stats are down. Aaron Rodgers is still a stud. Appreciate his greatness, sports media. They're crackheads. They live in a Madden world. They were the number 1 fucking seed in the NFC last year. 13-3 Green Bay Packers. They did get waxed in the playoffs in the NFC Championship game at home. Aaron Rodgers looked like shit. I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan, but to put the man out the pasture, to say that he's done, is nuts. It's batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So here's what I have to say. Minnesota is a better team than Green Bay with a worse quarterback. Right? So these are.
Where's Linval Joseph? Where's Everson Griffin? Where's Mackenzie Alexander?
Lots of new faces in Minnesota.
Yeah, that's true. Well, here comes down to this. It's a road game for Green Bay, and their record in road games, especially early in the season, not good with Aaron Rodgers.
It is.
So I'll just take it as a coin flip game. And that tempts me to give Green Bay 2.5. I wish they were getting 3. So I think maybe Minnesota wins by 3. I'll give the 2.5. Dallas and the Rams. Everybody seems to think the Cowboys are fantastic, like a top 5 team, and the Rams are going to sink down to mediocrity. But this spread does not reflect that. The spread is Dallas by 2. On the road in the opening of LA's new stadium. FC, we'll start with you.
This is actually a pretty interesting game because the one thing I know is Jalen Ramsey is going to 100% take Amari Cooper out of the game. That really makes Dallas the second wide receiver, whose name just escapes me, very, very important. I like Dak Prescott. I really do. Somehow, some way, he always manages a way to fuck things up. Now, people say that was Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett hasn't been on a football field playing in 25 years. So I'm not buying that as much. I hated Sean McVay of the Rams until I've seen a few episodes of Hard Knocks, and I don't hate him as much. Now, this is a horrible reason. I hate the Cowboys. I'm kind of coming around on the Rams, and after I heard Zach Martin talk shit on Aaron Donald and how he dominates him, now he's not a very good player, I think Aaron Donald might end Dak Prescott. So I'm going to take the Rams.
How about you, Jeremy?
What is Zach Martin doing? Talking shit to the best defensive player in football? What an idiot. I like the Cowboys here. I think they've got a little more offensively than the Rams. Rams' backfield is very unproven. I'm still not sold on Jared Goff. I never was when he went number 1 overall. I think he's a very average quarterback where at least Dak Prescott, I think last year he led the league actually in conversions on 3rd and 10. He found a way to make big plays when the time's counted. I'm going to go with Dak Prescott. I think offensively they're a much better team. I think they're underrated defensively a little bit. I'm taking the Cowboys here in the 2 points.
I read something this offseason about Dallas switching their linebackers around, and I don't remember exactly the details of it, but I thought that in the last couple of years that the Dallas linebackers, the way that they were arranged, were the strength of their defense. So it struck me as like a really odd thing to want to basically switch the roles of Van Der Esch and
Jalen Smith.
And I just felt like Jalen Smith was making plays all over the place. If you move him out of that role and expect Van Der Esch to make the same plays, that might take a little while to get used to for their team, especially against McVay, who's had some time to prepare for them, and they a chance to bring some tricks out of the bag that no one's had a chance to see yet. Also, and this is no small thing, I'm going to make a joke, but the Rams are used to playing in front of none of their fans. So this is not – it'll be like less of a disadvantage. I actually think the Steelers playing on the road are not going to have the boost they usually have on the road because they almost – if they pump in noise from fans, it's going to be noise geared toward the home team that they would never have had to deal with if they were playing the Giants under normal circumstances. And in this game, it'll be Rams have more fake fans than they ever had real fans. So I don't know. It's kind of I kind of think for 1 week, like there's a lot of these weird games. Week 1, a team wins that 6 weeks from now we would never pick to win the game, but because it's week 1, some weird stuff happens with the preparation. I'll take the Rams. Last one before we get to our game of the week. This one is like an all-timer for scratch your head and try to figure it out. Tampa Bay is a 3.5-point underdog at New Orleans. It's the two quarterbacks in history. It's the first time that the two quarterbacks who are 1 and 2 in history of the league, touchdowns, and history of the league passing yards are facing each other. I'll start with UFC. Tampa Bay is locked and loaded, and they got Uncle Brucey running things down there. Tom Brady, something to prove, chip on his shoulder. But they're going into New Orleans, who's stacked. How do you see this game?
I actually see this probably far different than it's being sold. Tampa Bay had the number 1 rush defense in the NFL last year, and it wasn't close. You go look statistically. Tampa Bay's rush defense last year, you talk 2000 Baltimore Ravens, you talk the 1976 Pittsburgh, you talk the 1985 Chicago Bears. And that's no BS. They were incredible versus the run. Drew Brees, I don't really buy too much into that arm. I think this is going to be a defensive battle between two teams. And that goes so contrary to what's being sold. I think the team offensively that can get 3 touchdowns on the board is going to win, to be honest with you. I think Tampa Bay's defense is so underrated. I think that the Saints' offense is slightly overrated, and I think their defense is slightly underrated. So if I had to pick this game, I'd probably go 24-21 Saints. But I add in the Tom Brady factor, I go 24-21 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Sure. I just buy into the Tampa defense, and I don't buy into as much into Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas as superstars. They're fantasy stars, as absolute game-changing, game-winning players, as much as I'm told to by the media.
Yeah, I'm all for calling out the players that are fantasy stars. It's great that they're fantasy stars, and it's great that makes them popular, but you can't confuse being a fantasy star with being a real football star. Jeremy, your take? Tampa Bay, New Orleans?
Yeah, I think FC actually hit it really well there. Both of these defenses are much better than given credit for. Like you said, Tampa Bay, number 1 in run defense last year. The Saints have always, the last 2 years, have actually had a very good defense, and then they added a piece like Nigel Bradham this year to help shore up the linebacker depth there. It's a tough game to call. because, again, I think it's going to come down to who makes the least amount of mistakes. And I just think that Tom Brady and the Buccaneers are going to find a way to pull this out in New Orleans. I don't think there's going to be any fans in New Orleans, with Louisiana kind of being one of the hotbed states. I don't think there's going to be any fans there. So I think that takes away, home court advantage. I think you're going to see that in a lot of NFL games this year.
Sure.
But my gut says Tom Brady is going to come out and really try to prove that he is the elite player that everyone thinks he is outside of New England and Bill Belichick's system. And it sounds like Mike Evans is going to be suiting up on Sunday too. So offensively, I think pieces are there on both sides. Same sign to Emmanuel Sanders to get a little more consistency at the number 2 wide receiver position there. Tampa Bay's got a plethora of tight ends and O.J. Howard, Gronk, and Cameron Brate. So, I just think you're going to see a lot of fun stuff. Like FC said, definitely think like it's going to be a much lower scoring game than the NFL would like it to be. They'd love it to be that 50-49, someone wins. And, this is the marquee matchup they've been trying to sell ever since Tom signed down in Tampa Bay. I think it's going to come down to a touchdown. I think like a 27-23, 30-23 type of game is going to be your final score in this one.
And you'll take?
I'm taking Tampa Bay.
Okay. I think I've hit the nail on the head. I think it's a defensive kind of game, a close game, field goal game, therefore take the points. Make it that simple. I do feel like it probably means a lot to Tom Brady, and I think he's the kind of person that has will maybe have a chance to will his team to a 3-point win. But even if he doesn't, keeps it close, give him the 3.5 points. That'll move us on to our 5-star matchup. It's your Pittsburgh Steelers against the New York Giants on Monday Night Football to open the 2020 football season and hopefully not close the 2020 football season. I'll start with you, Jeremy. You have the least seniority. I'm giving you the first go at it. What do you predict will happen in this game? And you have to actually pick one of the two teams.
I will definitely do that. I'm going with the Steelers. You got a veteran defense. You got Big Ben rested basically for an entire year. He's got a lot to prove coming back, and so does Juju Smith-Schuster. He wants to quiet the doubters too. He wants to prove that he can be the number 1 receiver. He's playing for a big contract next year, may or may not be in Pittsburgh. Fingers crossed, but probably not. I think Claypool is eventually going to be the guy to replace kind of what he does. But the Steelers have a lot to prove this year. And then, like I said, they're the veteran team out there, as where the Giants have a lot more youth, a lot more inexperience out there. I'm definitely going with the Steelers here.
FC, what's your take?
No camp, no practices really. Take the veteran, more experienced team. I think the Steelers will win this game 27-21. It'll be a nail-biter. I think the Steelers are going to have big-time issues at times, stopping the run. I know nobody wants to hear that. I don't see a true nose tackle on the roster. I have hopes for Carlos Davis. I don't have hope for Tyson Alualu. I think probably the biggest key for the Steelers for their season, outside the health of Ben Roethlisberger, might be the health of Stephen Tuitt, because when healthy and when right, I think he is elite. He just can't get healthy. He just can't get right.
Yeah, and he claims his bicep is stronger. His bicep tendon is stronger than it was either of the last 2 times that he's had some kind of issues with it. So we'll see. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that if he stays healthy, that front 7 stays healthy, it's hard to top them, especially the 4 guys up front. I think that the Steelers' only chance to make this a close game is to try to get into a running contest, to try to get in a contest to prove we can run better than the New York Giants can run in this game. Because I think that plays to the Giants' strengths a little bit. I can understand that they maybe going to come into this, game with the mindset of we're physically tough and we're clicking as a run team. because we're experienced and it's like the thing we know how to do well. But I feel like you want to get your quarterback out there and get him in sync with this amazing array of talent that he has. And I just feel like they're going to have to show a little bit in the pass game that they can do it before the run game will open up. So run smarter. I have no problem with running the football. Just don't eat away, 2/3 of your first and second downs running the football, and everything will be fine. I think that they will be able to get some passing yardage against the Giants. It's not a strength of their team. And I feel like the Giants are going to have real trouble with the Steelers' defensive line. They may be able to, execute on some run plays, and all you need with, Saquon Barkley is like a play or two where he gets it blocked up. He can really make you pay. But somehow I think that that's offers a bend but don't break kind of defense situation for the Steelers, and they're pretty good at that. I think it's more likely to be a Steelers blowout. I'll call it 30-9. We'll see. Big sloppiness early season, no preseason. Maybe that could, tone things down on both ends, the Steelers' run defense and the Steelers' ability to score. But I'll make it 30-9 on the road game. It doesn't feel like a close game when you look at the trenches. So that's where I'm at. Last word, I'll give one to you, Jeremy.
Well, so the other day, Kevin Colbert had an interesting comment. I don't know if you guys saw this about guys who may or may not be playing this year, that they are going to lean on taking guys who in the college ranks, that they are going to lean on guys that are going to be playing this year, that they're going to consider those guys over guys potentially who aren't playing, and right now that looks like the Big Ten, Pac-12. I thought a lot of people kind of had the wrong reaction into that. They're like, oh, they're not taking, the player's health into example. I think it's just taking more quantitative data and being able to use that to best project the player of the NFL. Just kind of go away from the game here. But I just thought that a lot of people kind of gave Colbert grief for that, and I just thought it was kind of the reasonable thing to say. We have more tape on someone, so we have a more sure opinion on him.
Yeah, I see that. It feels like maybe they're going to play anyway before the year's out.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I don't think he said they weren't going to take anybody. He just said it'd be easier for us to take somebody that we've seen play a bit more, right?
Yeah,
that makes sense. By the way, before I go to FC, what is in your cabinet behind you? Are these all your game balls that you were awarded for your spectacular play on the field?
No, especially not spectacular play. Believe it or not, I've never played a down of organized football in my life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so no, you guys remember Fast Willie, who was on the site years ago. He's the guy who brought me to the site. He's my uncle. These small white balls that you see are balls that I all got signed after the Steelers won the Super Bowl back in 2006. We went out there for my first training camp out there. Got a bunch of balls signed. You can't see it on the wall here, but I've got a bunch of signed pictures. I've got my favorite one is Big Ben Roethlisberger walking off the wild card win against the Colts with the shoestring tackle and everything, because I live in Indianapolis. I've lived in Indiana my whole life, and it was great to throw that in everyone's faces that year, that my Steelers beat them and then won the Super Bowl. And then the balls on the top are ones that he got me. I've got Lamar Woodley, Lawrence Timmons, James Harrison, and then I've got a doodle autographed one from Marquise Pouncey and Mike Wallace up there too.
Nice, good collection. I like that. You need an autographed framed photo of Brian McFadden, though, to make your collection complete. I'm not sure. I sent that. Someone sent it to me, and I sent it to someone on the site. It became a running joke for a while, but I forgot now who I sent it to. At any rate, last words for you, Dom.
I think it's time to contact Damon Snacks Harrison and let him know how good Permani Brothers is and how good the Quaker State wings are and butter, how good the food scene is in Pittsburgh. Because if the only thing we need is a nose tackle that can give us 25 to 30 plays, I think that Snacks Harrison is still available. Training camp is now over, so it's probably a little bit more to his liking to play the game of football again.
The game of eating, he seems to be winning, though.
Always.
Later on.
They don't call him Snacks for nothing, man. My final word is just, hey, I'm really glad that we have football, and I'm glad that we have a show, and that you guys could join me, and I'm glad that we have a site, and I'm especially glad this week that we have some really generous donations that help keep the site and the show going and help keep me married with a roof over my head. Not a bad thing. Enjoy the weekend of football. Maybe you're not playing years of organized football, but like me, you played years of disorganized football. This weekend is for you. Enjoy it. Stay safe and healthy. Special thank you to Perch, who couldn't be here this week. He's in Montana fishing, of course. And special thank you to Smith and Smokin', a.k.a. Jeremy Coleman, and also to Dom, a.k.a. FC. As always, keeping it real. And we'll talk to you, gentlemen, after an exciting Steelers victory in Week 1. I'm your host, Bradshaw DeBen, a.k.a. Will Massasak, saying, go get 'em, Steelers.
Go Stellars.
Let's go. Here we go.